The Department of Justice is asking a federal judge for an emergency restraining order to block the book written by Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton. The Trump administration argues that it contains classified information. Paula Reed reports from the White House.
Last-minute efforts by the Trump administration to block the release of Bolton's book have not prevented it from getting into the hands of over half a dozen reporters.
In a nearly 600-page book obtained by CBS News, former National Security Advisor John Bolton provides a detailed criticism of the Trump administration from inside high-level meetings. He describes the president as erratic and stunningly uninformed, including one instance where Mr. Trump asked if Finland was part of Russia.
I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. There really isn't any guiding principle that I was able to discern other than what's good for Donald Trump's reelection.
In a late-night tweet, the president called Bolton's book made up of lies and fake stories. Describing the events that resulted in the impeachment inquiry, Bolton writes that Mr. Trump wasn't in favor of sending Ukraine anything until all the Russia investigation materials related to Clinton and Biden had been turned over. And in another episode that bears striking similarities, Bolton recounts how the president asked China to buy a lot of American agricultural products to help him win farm states in 2020.
This is a perfect parallel to what he did with Ukraine, which was subjugate the country's interest to his own political fortunes and try to get a foreign country to illicitly help him in his campaign.
Now, Bolton refused to voluntarily participate in impeachment, but in this new book, he says that the president should have been investigated for matters far beyond just Ukraine. And he lays out multiple instances where he believes the president put his own interests ahead of the country's. Paula Reed, CBS News, the White House.
For a deeper dive, I am joined by CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge. Catherine, great to have you. You've been speaking with your sources in the administration and close to the intelligence community about the declarations in the Department of Justice filing. Tell us what you've learned.
Well, first of all, Lana, a declaration is a sworn statement to the court. And in this case, based on the filing, there are at least two classified declarations. They are not available to the public, but the judge can review them, and they lay out the intelligence that's contained in John Bolton's book, as well as the sources and methods used to collect it. And based on my reporting here at CBS News from sources who are close to this intelligence community review, these declarations serve two functions. The immediate function is to obtain an injunction, a restraining order to prevent the distribution of the book. And the second, and I think perhaps the more significant, is to lay the foundation for a potential criminal prosecution of John Bolton for the unauthorized disclosure of classified information if the Justice Department were to go down that route. And based on my reporting, a likely charge would be under 18 U.S.C. 793, and that's a section that deals with the transfer of national defense information to unauthorized parties. Lana.
That's very interesting, Catherine. Critics of the administration say that this information is more on the embarrassing side rather than classified, rather than that transfer of information that could lead to criminal charges. So what are you learning about the sensitivity of the information?
Well, based on my reporting here at CBS News, I was told that this intelligence includes highly compartmentalized information that is gathered from fragile collection methods. So let me decode that language for you. Fragile collection methods most often refers to intelligence that's gathered from human sources or spies on the ground, or electronic intercepts or bugging. And compartmented intelligence is considered sort of the crown jewels of the U.S. intelligence community. It's considered the most highly sensitive. And so there's very limited access to this information, so not a lot of people are able to see it. And the second part of it is that it's typically handled in what's called a SCIF, or a secure information setting. So this is, based on my reporting, highly compartmented information that came from sources that could be easily compromised if the intelligence were to be exposed.
That's interesting. Usually, Catherine, when we're talking about the government stopping or preventing the distribution of confidential or sensitive information, the book isn't already out. We at CBS have a copy of the book. We saw it there in Paula's piece. So what's really going on here?
Well, this is sort of my assessment based on the individuals I was able to talk to today. Their view is that you can't undo the damage now. And what I mean by that is that there's information based on the declarations which would give our adversaries, so China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, insight into how we are collecting intelligence about them. So, for example, you read a section of the book and the North Korean leader may say, okay, who was present for that conversation? Was I driving in a specific vehicle? Is that vehicle being bugged? Was I on a phone that the U.S. government has access to that electronic communication? So what happens in these scenarios, and this is what intelligence officials told me they are concerned about, is that our adversaries will change the way that they do business so that we're not able to collect information or listen to them in the same way, and that those intelligence streams go dark. So back to your original question, I think the bottom line here is that the view of the IC is that the damage cannot be undone, but they hope to hold John Bolton accountable for this unauthorized disclosure of classified information. One of the knocks against the system here in Washington is that it's like the little guy, the analyst, who goes to jail for an unauthorized disclosure of classified information. Even today, there was a case where a former analyst at the Defense Intelligence Agency got, I think it was 30 months for leaking to journalists. And they say this should be a case where someone very senior within the intelligence community is held to that same level of accountability.
All right, Catherine Herridge, thank you.
You're welcome.